Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. We're back with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Cringy Movie Collection Podcast is the name of the podcast. My name is Ralph and this is the Ludo, and we are through the intro.
And kind of weirded out by how fast you're talking.
Are you upset by this?
No, just observing what's happening.
Aren't you excited to talk about this movie?
More than how I was about the last.
So that's good.
Yes, but it's a bit of scary movie, people, so I didn't really actually watch.
That's true. You
you
saw half the movie. There was a lot of hiding behind my shoulder.
But I heard all of the movie.
All of the screaming.
Yeah.
Very good. When I first watched the Indiana Jones movies, I've told this story before. It was at my aunt's place, and they were in French. And we started with Last Crusade because that was the one that I knew from the game. So I figured, even if I don't understand what they're talking, I know what happens in the games. I know kind of what goes on. And then we went to Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then to Temple of Doom.
Oh.
And I had no idea what the story is, but I was then asked, which one did you like the best? And I said it was Temple of Doom, because it was the most visual of them. Like, you could permanently know what's going on without knowing the story at all. And it was, like, visually stimulating. And, it was gross. But also, it wasn't, like, as a kid, and also as a person who doesn't speak French, I was unaware of, like, how a lot of these things are a little inappropriate and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But how about you tell me what the story of this movie is in short terms?
So this movie comes after Raiders of the Lost Ark, but it's actually set before Raiders of the Lost Ark. So it's
That's right.
Younger Indiana Jones. He starts in Shanghai and he's doing some deals with some kind of Chinese mafia guy. And so he travels, but he gets derailed, and he lands with a singer and a kid in this Indian village, where he gets told that a rock that was sacred was stolen by people coming from this abandoned city and palace.
Yeah.
So he goes there
It's
and
called Pankot Palace.
Yes. So he goes there and he discovers that there is a new Maharaja and there is all an organization and it seems to be flourishing, but there is something suspicious. First he gets attacked and then they go look more deeply into
But
what's
Indiana
happening.
Jones talks about kind of the myths around a kind of cult called the Thuggee.
Yes.
And then the night after that, he gets attacked. By a thug.
Yeah. So he go and looks for an entrance to some secret chambers, and he finds it
By pressing on boobs.
Yes, and because it's Indiana Jones, and because he's a man, so they touch the boobs, and so he found the entrance. And so he goes there, and somehow all the three of them, him, the lady, and the kid, manage to arrive unscaled to the...
Unscaled. So they don't have any scales.
What do you...
Unscathed?
Okay, that thing.
Where do they arrive unscathed?
To the place where there were some weird ceremony taking place, so they see that actually all the people that told them, oh no, nothing is happening, were actually involved in this cult.
Right. So when Indiana Jones was telling about these myths,
Yeah.
a lot of people were like, come on, this is almost offensive that you're
Yes.
saying these things, this is all the past.
Yes.
And now we see them actually participating in some ritual.
Yes, and some weird rituals where there is like sacrifices and the guy gets this heart taken away but is still alive, and then they still burn him. So it's very scary. And when you look more into this temple, you see that they actually had kidnapped the kids from this village where they got the stone, and they're now having them as slaves. And then we discovered it is because there are originally 5 stones, and they only got 3, and they know that there are 2 buried in this.
Now you mean these
evil guys.
This cult is looking for these stones.
Yeah.
And they have 3, and they know that the remaining 2
are in the ruins.
That's right.
Underneath the temple, so they use the kids as slaves to make them dig through this mine. Yeah. But it's not so easy to stop them, because all of the 3 of our heroes, like Indiana Jones, the lady, and the boy,
it's Willie Scott and Short Round. Those are the names.
They get caught that they were there in this temple. So they have 3 different fates. The kid, since he's a kid, he becomes a slave. Indiana Jones is co-opted for some weird ritual in which if you drink blood, you live in a nightmare-like state, and you're kind of like brainwashed to do whatever they want you to do.
You basically become a member of this cult.
Yeah. And the lady got chosen to be the next human sacrifice.
Yeah.
So everybody gets saved by the kid, basically, because the kid find a way to free himself, and then he finds a way to desectize Indiana Jones.
Short Round figures out that if you burn a person who is affected by this weird blood drink, they will snap out of it, so to speak, and come back to being a normal person. And so it's unclear why he figures that out, but that's what happens. And so Indiana Jones is back, baby.
So then Indiana Jones saves the lady, and here starts a very long action scene in which they are on a mine trolley cart.
First, they also release the kids, the enslaved kids.
Yeah, and they also desectize the Maharaja.
That's right, with the fire, as we have already found out. So now we're in this famous minecart action scene where they're basically being chased through these mine shafts.
And this is very nice. It's a very nice scene, and there is not like horror stuff. And they get chased, and somehow they make it out of the mines. But there is a bridge, like a
rope bridge.
And so they are on this rope bridge, and the bad guys find them again, because this mega priest is very relentless.
His name is Mullah Ram, I think.
Yeah, he wanted to find them. Yeah,
they're on the bridge. They're surrounded.
And Indiana Jones cuts the bridge, and everybody's dangling. And but they
fight a bunch.
Yes, they fight, and then he does some weird thing. Indiana Jones knows a spell that makes the stones on fire, and this is what actually defeats the evil priest for the final time. And then the Brits also came, and they stop everything.
It sounds a little crazy, but it is a little crazy.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones knows a lot about these sacred stones, and what they have found out is that if you put them together, there are diamonds inside, and they glow.
Yeah.
And apparently, if you sort of recite a certain incantation, they glow to the point of immolation. They catch fire, and that, I don't know, I guess kind of catches the bad guy off guard.
Yeah,
and
it's so like, oh my gosh, it's so hot.
And then he catches one of the hot stones, and you were saying as we were watching the movie that it's like hot potato.
Yeah, because like Indiana Jones makes the hot stones, and then he throws them at the priest, and the priest casts them, and like, wah!
And then he throws it back, it falls off the thing.
And they managed to save one stone, and they returned it back from the village that were originally arrive and knew about this story
from the beginning of the movie,
and everybody is happy.
The kids come back too,
and then there is a little bit of rape,
and there's it's not rape because it's not sexual,
and then there is a little bit of
harassment, and inappropriate advances.
He has his whip because it's Indiana Jones, and the lady is just screaming at him and say that she doesn't want to have anything to do with him.
And she's been saying this the entire movie, basically.
And she's walking away. And what he does is he just takes the whip and shoop, and like kind of
lashes it around her and pulls her back.
Exactly. What does she does when he just like with the force he carries her back to him? She smiles.
Yeah, and they make out, and the movie ends. I mean, obviously, I think this is a good example, like the most extreme example maybe of like how little respect this movie has. Not necessarily for women, but for this particular woman and woman character. And I mean, it is very rapey.
Yeah,
I feel
this woman is the worst, but also I feel a little bit bad for her.
Yeah, can we talk about it in general? Can we talk about Willie Scott, the character, if we can even call it that? She hits every single like bad cliche of a female character in a movie. Like,
she's
screaming,
concerned that she chipped the nail.
Lazy, yes, superficial.
Gold digger.
She's a gold digger. She's like a diva.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. She puts like perfume on an elephant.
Oh yes, I was so afraid because maybe like it was like not
bad for
maybe it's bad for the elephant.
Give it skin cancer or something.
Yeah.
But luckily the elephant cleaned off.
We see the elephant at the end, so
and the elephant cleans off the perfume with water, and it's all good. What is that? What is that character? Why is it there? Why is it like? Do you think someone thought that was amusing?
I don't know. I don't get it because even if somebody is like that in Shanghai when she has all her like life and she can be very concerned about chipping nails and try to marry rich, once you are in a plane because they land in India because they are on a plane and the pilots go out of the plane
them.
And they have to kind of figure out a way out of the train.
Out of the train?
Out of the plane. But even before, they were just chased at gunpoint. I mean, like...
You should kind of smell the roses.
Your priorities should shift.
This is not show business anymore.
Yeah, I think that...
This is survival.
I think that any kind of person's priority would shift. I find
at least after a while, because this is not like half an hour of experience. This is several days.
Yeah, I find it a little bit more relatable, like the meltdown that she has when she falls off the elephant, and she was like saying
when she cries in the water.
Yeah, and she said that she had a life, and this is relatable because she's tired and probably she hasn't slept and eaten and
she didn't want to be riding an elephant through India, which is for like a fair point to say, look. Why did this happen to me? Because also if we look at the beginning of the movie, she's not voluntarily coming along. She's coming along because first she's a hostage, and then the guy who was supposed to protect her says he doesn't give a shit about her, so she tags along with Indiana Jones, even though she doesn't like him either. And then they end up in the fucking jungle. Like, it's not really her fault to be in that situation. It's just like really pitiful how she handles it.
Yes. And then, but then she has this meltdown in the jungle and feels like, oh, maybe this is like her breaking point and now she is gonna be better. But as soon as they reach the palace and she learns that the Maharaja is very rich, she has a wife, he has a wife, and then it's like, oh, okay, so she didn't learn anything from this like come to Jesus moment that she had at the foot of the elephant. So
famously, George Lucas, who wrote the story for this movie, went through a divorce. And so I could imagine that's why this female character comes across. Like, basically the love interest for Indiana Jones comes across as such a fucking piece of shit. You think that, like, this is a weird way of, like, lashing out?
If it was the only thing that is weirdly inappropriate about this movie, yes. This movie is very over the top with just like characterization. Like everybody in this movie is very highly, it's a saturated character.
Do you think this is different from like Raiders of the Lost Ark? I felt like it was like this then as well. Everybody was a little bit caricaturized. So.
Yes, but in a
slightly less cartoonish. Maybe.
But also in a like more jovial way.
A jovial way.
I don't know. It's like not a funnier way, like in a happier way, not like in a chiller way.
In terms of the vibe, this is a dark movie all of a sudden compared to the previous one, which wasn't like I didn't think that Raiders of the Lost Ark was light entertainment.
Yeah.
It is like everything feels like it's dangerous and like serious and all that, and in a way real. And it feels here as well that way, but it's it's also like there's nothing adventurous about it almost. Like it's almost like a horror movie where you're trying to just get out.
Yeah, and also it's a bit less believable maybe than the first one. Like I don't know, but maybe of the things that I question in this movie, then if I go back and look at the first one and say, well, maybe I could have questioned that, or like the same things also in the first one, but I didn't. Like, that's the point.
One of the things that I've always guessed is that one of the reasons why I feel like the first and the third Indiana Jones movie have a story that doesn't seem as far-fetched is actually because I'm way more familiar with the Christian myths. Like, this is something that seems way more out there, but it might also be because it's like culturally more removed from my experiences. So like it feels less likely, because let's be honest, the story of Raiders of the Lost Ark is nonsense.
Yes.
This whole ark and sand and all that, it's nonsense. And here we have a few more elements, I suppose, like a few more religious elements.
Yeah.
Like a more, not necessarily religious element, but like mystical elements, like this the blood drink, for example. Like that's another element on top of the glowing stones, and the weird like lava and the weird spell to remove a heart. Like it's a lot of different things that come together. Whereas in the previous movie, it's just okay. We have the Ark of the Covenant, and don't look at it. And in the third movie, to spoil that, we have the Holy Grail, and drink from it, and it's good.
Yeah.
And that's a simpler thing, and this is more elaborate, and a lot of the elements are unbelievable.
Also, I think that for me, like, it makes me less uncomfortable watching something unbelievable, but from a culture that I am from. Like, I grew up in a Christian country, so it's like if there is like some Christian myths and some like science fiction that's based on it, I don't feel like I don't know, since I don't feel so uncomfortable as if it's okay, this is another culture from India and we are gonna write a bunch of science fiction stuff on top of it and make it caricatural, because since you don't know the culture, you don't really know where one thing stops.
At what point it's offensive.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's talk about India then. India in this movie is, kind of reduced to this cult. We don't really see India as much. We see a village of poor people, and then we see a village, like a palace of rich people. And the rich people are all bad guys, and the poor people are all, like, happy that Indiana Jones comes as the white savior, which is a whole problematic thing on its own.
It's very cringy.
Yeah.
This is the Cringy Movie Collection Podcast, so it fits.
Yeah. What do you like? What do you think is over the line in this movie? Like, what is too much in terms of like cultural representation?
I should have asked an Indian person this, but I felt slightly uncomfortable in all the scenes because when he first arrives, so there is this village and they are living in a famine because they don't have their stone, and they were looking for a sign from the goddess Kali for something, and then like Indiana Jones arrives literally from the sky.
Falling from the sky in a fucking boat.
And I thought that was the sign, but we don't know this. And so when he arrives, we just see them, that are very white people, like just surrounded by this Indian village of Indian people, just wanting to touch them, and kind of like, it reminded to me the scene in which the Ewoks think that C-3PO is a god because they make sounds that's kind of similar also. Okay. And it's just like, I was like, this doesn't look appropriate, and I never was really able to shake this. But then it just got worse, because when they arrive at the palace, there is this banquet scene.
Yeah.
That's very hard to watch. I think that was my least, like, the hardest thing for me to stay by, because there is this scene in which they take away their heart, but it's like just a single scene, like just single happening that you don't want to look at.
And you didn't watch that anyway?
No.
So.
But the banquet was like an
extended scene.
Yes, of like one thing after
it's
the
like
other.
It's like,
how can we top? We have a gross dish now. How can we make a grosser one for the next one?
And it feels, because a lot of the gross things that happen in this movie happens because it's the bad guys doing it, and not because it's Indian people doing it. But the food seems like it is Indian, like it's like, because they're pretending that they're good people, so they wouldn't like bring them, like, I don't know, a severed human head or something like that. So the movie is kind of suggesting that this is regular Indian food, and it's like, I mean, if it was, it would still be offensive because we're basically making fun of it and saying how gross is that. But if it isn't,
but it is like, if it was real and it would say that it's gross, it's like, I would feel that it's kind of legitimate, because like,
depending on how you play it,
when some culture like eat dogs, I feel that, well, I should a little bit be allowed to judge them badly.
And maybe some like exotic seafoods and things like that, you're like I'm not sure if I want to bite into that.
Yeah, or like the people that eat culture, if they eat whales or like other weird animals, it's like, do we really need to do that? But we are two vegetarian people, so also. But also, this is a point. Like, they serve one weird animal after the other in a country that is basically like half vegetarian. So it feels kind of weird, and it seems that this was supposed to be a subtle joke.
This is what it says on Wikipedia, isn't it?
It's like the Indian actor is what it was.
Amrish Puri?
Yes, it was.
Amrish Puri? I don't know. Like, I don't want to be too offensive here. Only a little bit offensive.
It was a quote that said that it was supposed to be a joke because this is just like Indian people serving foods to Western
foreigners.
People, and so they were like
they're trying to gross them out.
Yeah,
on purpose.
just like make them believe that, this is what we eat.
If there was like a scene in the kitchen or something where they go like, hey, we're gonna put eyes in the soup or something like that.
Yeah.
Then that would maybe work.
Yeah, because it's really believable. It's not that like the Indian people at the table are like winking at each other or stuff. I don't know. I wasn't.
There's one guy who's kind of like egging on them, like going like, oh, you don't like this bug, and she goes like, I had bug for breakfast. Like, he's trying to mess with her a little bit.
Yeah, but if
it
was
doesn't
like,
come across as that.
Then look at another guy and just kind of like share a smile between them. Maybe it would come across, but
it's
I
not
don't
played
know.
like that. Yeah. Short Round, the Asian kid, the Asian sidekick of Indiana Jones in his early years. Short Round is a bit of a contested idea as well among fans, I think, of Indiana Jones. What is your opinion of because we have seen Indiana Jones without a sidekick.
Yeah.
In this movie, he has one. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think that we needed somebody that did what he did in the movie, because the woman wasn't doing much. And
he was kind of funny.
Yeah. And also, I think that, for example, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, there is this Egyptian friend that does a little bit. It's like he has different friends that like that do an accompany role along the way, but so he's not
running around on his own all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
So when they go in this movie, when they go into that cave thing, he has Short Round with him, and unfortunately, Short Round is causing a lot of trouble. Because he keeps pressing buttons and standing against the wrong wall. And
like it's nice. It can be. It can act as a little bit of a comic relief. Also, it makes funny faces. Sometimes it's a bit too annoying, especially when he talks to the lady, and he wants to be like Indiana Jones, and he like mimics him. It's like an annoying kid. And since we already have like the weird setting and the screaming lady, we don't also need an annoying kid.
Yeah. Now, I don't. He's a Vietnamese actor, I think, and I don't know how to pronounce his name. I know that his first name is like Ki, and then it's like Quy Quan or something like that. I don't want to be offensive, but
I can
anyway.
read because I don't pronounce any word correctly.
So Ki and all that, like he stopped acting after a while. Like he got kind of bullied out of Hollywood, and it was quite a sad story. And then recently, he came back with what is it called? Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, I heard that.
Which is the movie
Is it a book?
I don't know, but it's a movie that came out and won a bunch of Oscars, including, I think, Best Picture. And I think he got an Oscar for Best Supporting Character.
Nice. We like a good comeback story.
It's a lovely story because he seems like a genuine dreamer, and his dream was to be an actor, and he was cast by Steven Spielberg to be in Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And then he was like in Goonies as well, I think, and then it just went away, and it must be like really rough. But my favorite thing about this is obviously he did a bunch of interviews after that movie now in 2022, and he says that Steven Spielberg still sends him a Christmas present every year, which is something that I feel like Steven Spielberg would do.
One of my favorite shot of the movie is when everything is over and Indiana Jones goes to the kid and he puts the baseball cap that he always wore, the kid always wore on his head, and then the kid gives him his hat, and it's such an emblematic thing because it's like a hat thing and Indiana Jones and a hat, but it's also
very warm.
So fuzzy.
Yes, it is. So that particular scene or that particular frame really conveys the relationship these two characters have, which we see in the movie. Like, it's there. It's just overshadowed oftentimes by Willie's yelling and things like that. Like, they play cards at some point, and like the kid accuses him of cheating,
but
and then it turns out he's cheating. And it's like, yeah, that's like they're scoundrels, you know? They're like Han Solo types.
Yeah.
And as characters, it works.
The problem with this movie, and that probably Steven Spielberg also realized after a while, was that he didn't want to use the Nazis as like the bad guys again.
Yeah.
But this is like the only movie that makes me miss the Nazis.
It would just, like, you can't offend Nazis.
Yes.
The Nazis are not going to come out and go like, no, we're not like that.
Yes, this is actual people that did actual terrible things.
But at the same time, I also understand that you would go like, if it was like this, like kind of a serialized adventure thing, don't always have the same villains. Like, Nazis are a great movie villain, especially kind of like, the weird thing is the range of like, you kind of Indiana Jones Nazis, which are almost cartoon enemies. And then you can have Schindler's List Nazis, if we stay with Spielberg, who are like the most vile, dangerous human beings you can imagine. It's amazing how light you can make Nazis, I feel. And it's something that Spielberg doesn't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
I suppose especially after kind of reckoning with his own heritage after Schindler's List in the 90s, Like, I get it.
What is the heritage?
He's Jewish.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a movie called The Fabelmans. You can watch that, which is kind of an autobiographic thing. It's a Spielberg movie about himself, about his own childhood. And, that's also, like, the Jewishness also plays into it. This is a strange movie to follow up Raiders of the Lost Ark. But also, I have some respect for the idea that we have to do something different. And, like, it ties in with the idea we're not doing Nazis again.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're going to make it darker and more kind of visceral and things like that. Well, not necessarily visceral, but, like, there's, like, it seems more non-stop, this movie, compared to the other one. The other one has quiet scenes much more. Like, this one just has to keep going.
It seems shorter.
Yeah.
But like, my point to be is that...
Your point to be... Are you getting married to your point? My
point is that I go to the movies and I watch Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I get, but this movie is nice. Like, I like it. It has he like kicks people out of vehicles. I like these things. And then I don't live in a world in which there are trailers everywhere and ads and stuff. I don't know how it was 84, but I don't think it's gonna be like.
Well, you would see it before. Like
I go on YouTube and I get an ad for the new.
Okay, no YouTube in 84, but there would be pre-roll trailers. So you probably have seen a trailer.
Yes, unless I don't go to the cinema often.
You only go watch Indiana Jones movies.
I went to Indiana Jones for some reason.
But I also think that in 84, there aren't like home video systems as much and stuff like that. So you would probably be going to the cinema more if you're watching movies.
Okay, I went to the cinema and then there is like a new Indiana Jones movie. And it's like, well, I like the first one, but this is me. It's Ludovica. I'm easily... scared and weirded out, so it's like, this is not gonna be a nice experience, and I thought I was gonna go to the movies.
It's a fair point.
I also pay a ticket. I also pay a ticket out of it.
It's a fair point to say that like there are some things that you wouldn't expect in a sequel to like I don't know, if you have Free Willy, like you wouldn't expect in Free Willy 2 that he gets slaughtered.
Yeah.
Like it's just like there's some level of like that's too much of a change. I agree that this is not a great sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I also agree that there are elements in it that are like straight up bad. Like the kind of racist angle and the sexist angle, like they shouldn't be in this movie, and it would be just a better movie for it. But other than that, I gotta say, as like kind of a horror, like it feels like a B movie in many places, like kind of like a.
What is a B movie?
Like kind of like a cheap like thrill type of movie.
Yeah, it feels very cheap.
But not cheaply made, but like in a sense that like like what if we showed you drinking blood? That's pretty scary, But it's like not clever in any way. And I think as that, and there's many movies like that, like where it's just about cheap thrills, and I think as that it works really well. It is really competent. It's just not the kind of movie I want to watch.
Yeah.
But like I understand how like a lot of people might really like this.
But not the people that like Indiana Jones.
Exactly, and
probably.
they might not necessarily like the franchise.
It's not the target demographic.
One of the things that we know about this movie is that when they made Raiders of the Lost Ark, they had a lot of other ideas for action scenes that didn't make it into the movie. So when they made the sequel, they were like, let's do all of those things. And that's why this movie starts, well, it starts with a musical number for some reason.
That's also very long.
That's kind of insane. That's a weird way of starting a movie. And then kind of a screwball, they're running around and there's ice and diamonds and that's weird. But then they fall out of a goddamn plane and it's not enough. They slide down the mountain, then they slide down into a white water like thing. It's just like, what? Like all at once. But it's iconic, like them falling out of that plane in a floaty boaty thing, like in an inflatable yellow rescue
raft.
boat. Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's stupid, for one thing. That's ridiculous that it would survive that 2 times.
Yeah.
Like, they basically fall out of the plane, and they just fall out of a waterfall.
It feels like less action because you're just like, that can't happen.
Yes, but I feel like a lot of the action, like, compared to Raiders of the Lost Ark, is just ridiculously stupid. But it's, like, in a fun way. Like, the minecart thing is the other, like, iconic thing.
That I really like.
So much fun, but it's also mega stupid, right?
Yes.
At some point, they jump from 3 meters height off the tracks for the minecart and land on the other tracks. Like that's the level of
that looks like a video game. And I was also thinking, I hope that like some like the studios or the parks there, they did a roller coaster out of it, because I bet that a lot of people, even if they don't like Temple of Doom, they will like ride there.
But what do you like? Because I think when we watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, we were saying like the action in this is incredible, like spectacular. Do you think the action that we get here gets a similar kind of predicate?
No, because I think that it's what I like about the action in Raiders of the Lost Ark is also there is a little bit more levity in it anyway, and in this movie there is no levity. Like, they still make faces and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, for example, it's fun when he fights the giant Nazis.
On the airplane?
Yes, at the airplane. Well, here, like, yes, there is the guy that is only able to defeat himself with rocks.
That's so goofy in a way.
That's very goofy, but it's also very... Then he gets squished and stuff.
Isn't the problem that there's an element of voodoo in it?
Yes.
Which makes him helpless, and he's just being like transported into a grinder, and it's just terrifying.
Yeah,
and there's no fun element to that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like these are two parallel.
And then the other
scenes.
guy gets like hung by the neck, and they try to help him, and then he dies.
Oh yes.
It's like just too much, too heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
So
but other than that, I think like the execution is still like really good.
Yeah, but I do think
just,
that
again, it's like wasted a little bit on the like heaviness of the film.
Harrison Ford can make a very good like funny, goofy action scene face that also makes you believe that it's serious in some way.
And on the like while shooting this movie early on in one of the palace scenes, he got very severely injured in the back, and so he's probably
was really in pain.
No, so in the fight scenes, he probably only is in the close-ups, and other than that, it's a stuntman.
But he could make the face in the close-ups.
That's my point. Like, All he did was that face,
Yeah.
probably. So this movie is set before Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Now, if you remember in Raiders of the Lost Ark, his story is kind of like Indiana Jones doesn't believe in the hocus pocus. He just is an
Yes.
archaeologist. And then in the end of the movie, he sees that there is something to
Yes.
it. It doesn't make sense if this movie is set before that, and he learns that these stones can like be enchanted and turned into like flaming stones and all of that. Like, don't you think that it's a little weird that
Maybe something happened that it was different and make him disillusioned. Maybe he was like way younger in this one and he got disillusioned later and it's like, no, this like,
Yeah.
it's over,
Maybe.
Anakin. Or he just removed it from his memory. Just,
he forgot?
he
He forgot the time he almost got eaten by an alligator?
It was too much of a traumatic experience.
Okay.
It's just his mind shut it
To be
off.
fair, it's a pretty traumatic movie, so
Yes.
traumatizing movie, I suppose.
Yes. I love when there is an adventure movie and they go on adventure and they show them up with all the little dots that connect.
Yeah.
And here they started, but they just did one stop because then the pilots like jumped off the plane.
This is not a globetrotting adventure at all.
Exactly,
They just
but
go
they
to
still
India.
put them up. And I was all excited, like, oh, they're gonna go around, they're gonna make all the trips,
Yeah.
and then it didn't happen. So, and I was like, well, maybe they are gonna come back to the map some point, and they never had.
I feel like
there
there is a lot of kind of corrections that will be made with the third movie. Like there will be Nazis again. You know, there will
It's gonna be a good map.
There will be a lighter tone. I know that there's at least one, but there's probably like 3 or 4.
So I love a good map, and this movie kind of let me down a little
Yeah,
bit on the
they
map
will go back to
front.
their basics. You know? What do you absolutely hate about this movie?
The banquet.
The whole scene, yeah.
Yes, it's disgusting and it's insulting and it's just
Yeah.
no.
Good.
What do you hate?
Willie Scott. It's just a shitty character. The acting is shitty. Can you believe that Steven Spielberg married that woman?
Maybe she's a very good person.
She's maybe a nice person.
Like,
and she
I
will-
don't care
I mean,
if you're a good journalist or not. I still love you. Like so.
She went along with this shitty character. Maybe.
Oh, you owed that to her.
Yeah.
You need half of my things
Inheritance,
now.
I don't know. I think he actually thought of her as a very good actress, and so I don't know. I don't know if I've seen her in anything else, so I can't tell. But she's not good in this, but also she's not playing a character that could ever be good. So
Yes, exactly.
it's difficult to tell where the bad acting ends and the bad.
Do you think
character
that
just
if
continues.
Meryl Streep did Willie Scott, it would be better? No, like the lines are that. Also, like how I told you during the movie, it's like how disappointing is like you receive your lines as an actress and you see that half of them are just screams.
I absolutely love the minecart scene in this. It's so silly, but it first of all it takes us out of the really like gruesome stuff back to like a lighter tone. I feel, in part because it's silly, and like I was saying earlier, it's ridiculous that they can jump the thing and just keep going. But I think that's what you would kind of expect from an Indiana Jones movie, or at least from a sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. I like that they kind of switch it up at some point. At first they're chasing each other, but then they're side by side, and then they have to, like, he has to use his shoes to break, and there's a little joke about water. And the water stuff is ridiculous as well, because there's a very small amount of water that's being poured over
And a
lava.
big amount of lava.
Yeah, like it's poured over lava and then it comes out the other end and shoots out the hole with the force of 1,000 horses. Like, I don't know what that is, but it's funny and it's fun. And I think it's better, even if it's kind of bad still. Like, it's like schlocky. It's like B-movie stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of this movie is just B-movie stuff.
Oh.
But it's more fun.
So the thing that I absolutely love about this movie, even though I'm gonna call it with the wrong name, is the trash compactor scene. I'm gonna tell you about why. Because first, when they get trapped into this trap that is gonna squeeze them, is because
So maybe just quickly explain. This is a room that has a roof that can move down
Yes.
and kind of squish the people in it.
Yes, and at the
there's
same
spikes.
time, there are spikes coming out of the top, the bottom, everywhere. And the scene starts that since they are in this weird room and Indiana Jones hasn't figured out how it works yet, it just tells the boy, just go in the corner, go against the wall. And he goes, and the boy goes against the wall.
Because doesn't he step on a button on the ground to close the doors?
Yes, the boy is kind of like touching everything.
So he gotta stop touching anything. You're gonna make it worse and worse.
Yes. And then he goes against the wall and he touches this...
He leans against what seems to be another button.
Yes. So it's like all of these like weird buttons. It's like kind of comic. And then I like that...
And it's so important to the kid to point out that it wasn't his fault. He was told to lean against the wall. So it's like... And then he's like, this wasn't me, it wasn't me. And it's like, that's kind of funny.
Yes, and also I like that for once, the woman is kind of a team player. And even though she's like the room before the trap is full of insects and other arthropods.
Pretty scary.
And it's scary, it's disgusting. And she is disgusted because she is who she is.
And you would be too, I would be too.
I would be, everybody would be.
These enormous insects, like the size of your hand.
Yes, like crawling everywhere, and she has to reach her hand into a hole full of insects to free them. But
she's still being a mega bitch about it, though.
Yes.
And the problem there is the way she talks. Like, if you just like hesitate because you need to like psych yourself up to that, like, you know, like let's say on a not so hot day, you want to jump into water. Like you stand there for a moment and you like gather your spirits, and
like
then you
I did
jump
today.
in. That's why I'm saying it. We went swimming earlier. Anyway, like you psych yourself up and you go in, right? But you're not going to try and argue with the person that's about to die.
Yeah.
That's the weird bitchy part.
I think that she didn't believe that they were really about to die.
Yeah.
Like she thought that it was an hyperbole.
Yeah, to be fair, it's difficult to convey to someone what's happening to you if you're in that situation.
But I love also the shot in which we see Indiana Jones's face from the hole, and she's like, "We're about to die,"
Yeah,
and
it's
like
all
it's
sweaty and
it's like
really
a
rough.
very good face, and then she does it.
Harrison Ford is acting really well in this movie.
I love him.
His
Like
acting
I
is
think that
so
he's very good.
And he's good in most things,
Yeah.
but like there's also one scene where Willie Scott is scared, and so Kate Capshaw is running around and she's constantly scared of animals and like sounds and all of that, and it looks so fake and stupid. And then there's a snake right after that
Yes.
in the same scene basically, and Harrison Ford conveys how Indiana Jones is deadly afraid of snakes in like 2 seconds.
Like even if you haven't seen the first movie and knew that he's afraid of snake, you will realize that he's afraid of
Then
snake.
it's almost like it's showing off against Kate Capshaw, who can't show afraid at all. It's so good.
But anyway, so they free each other, and then there is another push button. The room is closing. They go through the tunnel. They save the hat. I think it's my favorite.
Yeah. It's a well-made scene.
Yeah.
It works well, and it moves at the right pace as well.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the question: Can I keep Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in the collection?
So
Maybe keep in mind that it's a trilogy.
I know that you like it's a set and they are all together, but I do not care. I don't think that you
It's
need.
not worthwhile.
Now this is why we're gonna watch. My next movie is gonna be The Godfather 2, not The Godfather 1, because we have to do a set. It's like every movie in a series has to be worthwhile for you to be wanted to watch it.
Yeah.
So no, it's not gonna stay in the collection.
How you want to destroy it? Throw it into a pit of alligators?
Melt it.
You always want to melt things.
I want to burn things.
At least pull its heart out or something.
No, I don't like that.
Just lower it into a pit of lava.
I'm not gonna feed it to the alligator because they should have been crocodiles.
Inaccurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, lava.
Lava.
Thank you. On the next episode of the Cringy Movie Collection Podcast, we're going to stay with friends of Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and that is Brian De Palma. We're going to watch Mission Impossible, the very first one from 1960, from 1996. Sorry, I have to look at my notes there. Yes, the first Mission Impossible movie with Tom Cruise, because the new one is coming out, and could be good. I have three Mission Impossible movies in my collection.
Wow.
That's as many as Indiana Jones movies.
Wow.
It's probably
So
the
it
biggest
feels
franchise.
like that this series of the podcast now is just us trying to keep up with the new movies that are related to the movies.
Well, the
in
newer the
collection.
movies are in the collection, the more likely is that there will be like franchises in there because everybody's watching franchises now.
So this is why I just keep choosing movies from the 70s.
But nevertheless, you want to watch Godfather 2, a
Why?
franchise movie.
It's a saga.
Okay. If you say so.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Bye.